Alright, this is chat tournament something or other. The match between Vid and Turdz. This is round one. Every match not involving this match has already been played in the tournament. So we know Yevon will face the winner of this match, having beaten Seto, and we know the winner of that match will face Vialva in the finals. I think that's right. I might be making this up, but I think that's right. So Turdz's first turn. This is, let's look at the rules. Level 7, all normal rules in effect. No same wall, but there are no rares here, so not a problem. As I often do, let's check the opponent's hand. Vid has 7 up, 8 right, 7 down, 7 left. So that makes, you think 7-7, 7-8 corners anywhere but to the right should be potentially effective. 4-8-7-6 for Turdz in 1 is covered by 5-6-7-7. 6-7-7-5 in 1. In fact, it's also covered by 5-6-6-7. But 6-7-7-5 in 1 could be good, but looks very potentially set upable against. Is it actually set upable against? Yes. 7-6-4-6 and 5. Only one setup. It felt like there should be more setups on that with so many 7s facing it. But 7-6-4-6 and 5 is a huge setup there. There's also 5-3-7-8 and 3 because it has the 8. That is initially safe. Is there a setup against that? So many setups to check. So the top and bottom card both need a 5 to the right to set up from 6, and there's not that. 7-3-7-7 needs a 7, there's not that. 5-5-8-5 needs a 7, there's not that. 7-6-4-6 needs a 6 or an 8. So we know that one of the cards with a 6 to the left has to go in 5, and yeah, some of them do set up. Okay, that one's set up against a bull against as well. Maybe Turdz will end up with something like 4-8-8-4 and 6, with 5-3-7-8 as the recapture. That seems possible. It does feel like Vid's hand should be able to set up against most things, and putting out high numbers immediately is not going to be a very viable strategy. 4-8-4-8 and 6 is a bad move. 5-3-7-8 doesn't have 9. This is weirdly difficult to start. It's felt like it should be a very natural hand. If you, you can chuck something like 5-8-5-5 and 9 and not feel too terrible about it. But also, you could easily get swept on the top by those like 5-6-7-7 types, or on the bottom by 7-6-4-6. All right, so he does go for one of the big side plays. He only has, I guess, 6-7-7-5 is a recapture in both squares. This is better than my 4-8-4-8 and 6 strategy. It also gets a card out of his hand that you want out of the hand more. Let's say Vid does the obvious and plays something like 5-8-5-5 and 7, just taking safety. Turdz will presumably play 6-7-7-5 and 1, taking safety back. And that looks alright for him. Intuitively, at least. There's not like a big setup in 8. Are there setups in 2? Because if there are setups in 2, sometimes you start in 2. The problem with starting in 2 is if you start in 2, the idea of starting in 2 is they go 1 and then you hit them in 7, right? Because if you start in 7 and you don't have 8, you can't set up a natural L. If you go 7, they go 1, and you go 2, you're locking in a card for them. It can be okay, but it has a concession. So if you have 2 and 7, the move order you usually want is to go 2 first. But I don't think there's particularly good play in 2. And also the move in 7 doesn't capture 4, and you usually really want to capture 4 in those lines. So I'm going to guess Vid is going to go in 3 or 9. No idea which card. I think this was a reasonable starter. It was better than the things I found. Maybe also there's something like 5-6-6-7 or 5-6-7-7 and 1. Intending to play 7-3-7-7 and 2 after for the L, because all of Turdz's ways of captures are a little uncomfortable. Like 5-3-8-7 and 2, you combo in 5 with the sword card, and 4-8-4-8, you combo in 3 with whichever is still in your hand of 5-6-6-7 or 5-6-7-7. So I would probably play something in 1. I think Turdz playing in 7 using 6, 7, 7, 5 is a bit of a concession. He lacks ups. You then play something in 2, setting up 5, and Turdz' hand is not well distributed for the game. And Vid plays it. Yeah, I like this move a lot. This feels right to me. Turdz does not have captures, and 7 and generally stuff facing up is not comfortable for him to have leave his hand. And Vid will have a choice if Turdz goes in 7 between 5, 6, 7, 7 and 2, or 7, 3, 7, 7 and 2. Both of which look pretty reasonable. Hard for Turdz to come up with a move other than 7, right? If you go 2, you really have to check pretty deep. And there's just like, if you go say 4, 8, 4, 8, and 2 and get comboed in 3, you go 5 and like A, you don't really have a card to put in 5, but B, even if you did, you just have no threats against anything on the board. Because 6, 7, 7, 5 maybe had to come out of your hand. It's just really tough. And if you go in 2 with a 5, 3, 7, 8, I think there's actually more potential there. If you can go in 2 with 5, 3, 7, 8, you walk into 7, 6, 4, 6, and then you can play safely in 3 with a 7 down, which you can do. Then and you specifically play with a 4, 8, 7, 6 there. You have 4, 8, 4, 8, and you've kept a little of your up power in 6, 7, 7, 5. It's possible you can just calculate that out to a tie. Like there might be a tie with 5, 3, 7, 8, and 2. But it's also really scary to play because anytime they have 5 comboing you. What if they go 5, 6, 7, 7, and 6 and set it up so 7, 6, 4, 6 has 3 and 5 and 9? Like those positions are pretty scary. Or 5, 8, 5, 5 is probably the better card to put in 6. So that's pretty scary to walk into. So it doesn't really feel like the kind of position where you want to be touching 8. Turdz has obviously had a bad recent result playing in 9, but actually, I think normally you want to go in 9 when they don't have a way to play near the action either, and you're just trying to sort of pass the turn back to them and they don't have a way to improve the board state. But here, I don't think that's the case. 7 is a valuable square for either player to take, and Vid would be very happy to take it. So I kind of think you have to play 7, but this looks very good for Vid. I'm back out on this starter. I say should have been a weak corner. 5, 8, 5, 5, and 9. That's the way. That's always the way. Direct the game with a weak corner when your hand doesn't click. He goes for it. He goes for the forcing line. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Didn't trust the L. Would rather walk into stuff. So the critical moves for Vid, in my opinion, note that Turdz has 5 as well as Vid. So if Vid goes somewhere like 5, 8, 5, 5, and 7, Turdz goes 5, and suddenly he's gotten rid of Vid's combo square, and he's locked in all these cards. So I do think you either go 5 yourself, where Turdz has clearly seen, okay, you go 7, 6, 4, 6, and 5, I get 4, 8, 7, 6, and 3, I've got 2 safe cards, and I have some cards that can attack the board. 4, 8, 4, 4 almost sweeps the bottom. It has hope there. There's play. I get something here. I like that concept. The part I'm worried about is if 5, 8, 5, 5, and 6. Probably 5, 8, 5, 5. There's an argument for holding on to 5, 8, 5, 5 because it's the only card that stops 4, 8, 8, 4, 8, 4, 8 from sweeping you on the bottom. But because 4, 8, 4, 8 can never take up and also is fairly unlikely to combo anything, it does play well against 7, 6, 4, 6 and can hit one side of 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. But I think it's unlikely to be a powerful enough sweeper because it doesn't have the ups. It's not getting a double capture. It's getting one capture at the end. So while it does give you some resistance to that, essentially, I think it's not worth it. So I think 5, 8, 5, 5, and 6 is the kind of natural move. When 7, 6, 4, 6 is really good. The question is, can Turdz just take 3? Say he plays 4, 8, 7, 6, and 3. Vid takes the combo in 5. He will be up 7, 3. He'll have taken everything but 3. And Turdz goes 6, 7, 7, 5, and 7. making it 6-4, and 4-8-4-8 does sweep that endgame. You don't have any captures, and 4-8-4-8 gets a capture. So that might hold. That might hold. Alternatively, Vid could start with 5-6-7-7 and 6. And if Turdz goes 3, Vid takes 5. Now, in that line, that doesn't recapture 6. So when Turdz goes 7, he's making it 5-5. That's still a tie. So maybe this is just very nicely held by Turdz. One of those lines where you know you want to play in 2 or 7, and you just have to make something work there. And here there's a couple concepts. I think maybe 4-8-4-8 is a sufficient sweeper on the bottom with 6, and holding on to 6-7-7-5 as long as you can gives you just enough power to capture something. And if you walk, there's still 7-6-4-6 and 5 immediately when you play 4-8-7-6 and 3. But you've kept 6-7-7-5 in your hand there. And because there's a 4 facing down from 5, Vid never has safety with 5-8-5-5 and 7. This might hold. All right, Vid goes for the big setup. This was the move I thought was critical. But I also thought Turdz could just go 4-8-7-6 and 3 here, which is, not a move that's going to hold all that often, but does seem to hold here. Now, I didn't check every continuation after 4-8-7-6, 3-7-6-4-6-5, but I don't have to. 6-7-7-5 and 7 is sufficient. That move at least ties. I don't think Turdz has a win there, but if he does, you look for it then. But the goal was to find at least a tie in each line. This was a very nice game of Triple Triad. Very nice game. I don't think Turdz can look for more here. I don't think, he does have last turn, and 6-7-7-5 hits hard. Okay, no, maybe there's a case where he can. So what happens if Turdz plays 4-8-7-6 in 9, right? Because if you want to avoid the action in 3 and 5, you play somewhere else from it, and that's safety. And that's the only square that's safe. You keep 4-8-4-8 to sweep the bottom, and you have 6-7-7-5 for 3 and 5. I guess your problem is you set them up in 8. So now if they go 3, you have to go 6-7-7-5 and 5. And now 5-6-7-7 is 8, and it doesn't look so good. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Alright, so I don't think you can be ambitious here. I don't see a way to be ambitious here. Maybe 4-8-4-8 and 9. It's fine that it's not safe because 7-6-4-6 is so integral to your opponent's hand, right? 7-6-4-6 is really needed for 3 or 5, especially 5. 3, you can do other things, so it won't combo. So 4-8-4-8 and 9. You could also start in 7 with either of those cards. Maybe 4-8-7-6 and 7, so you keep the sweeper. But the thing is, if 4-8-4-8 6 goes in 9, 4-8-7-6 still sweeps the bottom row, so it probably doesn't matter. There's some ideas there. All right, Turdz goes for the clean line, but 7 and 9 were quite interesting. Quite interesting. All right, from Vid's perspective now, I think you kind of have to go 5, go up 7-3, and Turdz has finagled himself a tie. Yeah. Interesting game. I'll put this one in the database. I really like how this was played. I think by both players. Vid definitely got an advantage out of the starter, and Turdz found a really good way to clarify the position. And then Vid went for the complicated option, where actually Turdz had a fair few options that were pretty interesting. I'm not sure they worked. That means, having a few options that are pretty interesting does not actually necessarily mean your position is more promising than if you only had this tying idea in 3, because it gives you a lot of ways to be tempted to go wrong. Sometimes it's just much better to have the, there's one way to do it, and you're just going to do that, and then you don't convince yourself there's anything else in the position. But 7 and 9 were kind of interesting, and I'm not 100% sure they didn't work. But I guess it's really unlikely, because if Vid goes in one of the other squares on the bottom row, like you go 9, Vid goes 7, or 7, 9, either of the cards you could put in 8 if you're trying to leave 3 and 5 open for 6, 7, 7, 5. Give a same to 7, 6, 4, 6, which means it flips even the extra stuff you flipped. Maybe you can avoid that. No, but he controls what the numbers out are. Yeah, so I think there wasn't anything there. And, yeah, really interesting game. I like this one a lot. Seemed well played to me, but also, I love when someone calculates their way out of a difficult spot, right? Turdz is, I think, in serious trouble after Vid's move in 1. I think that was a really good move in 1, and I think Turdz is in serious danger there. And he walks into combos because he has found justification. People often stop their thinking. And Turdz continued his thinking, figured out, okay, I can give up 5 because I get 3. And then later, okay, they have 6. I can give up 5 again. I can take 3, give up 5, because I have 7 and a sweeper. And, yeah, nice game. We'll continue on to a second game. A lot of shared cards. This must, yeah, very minimal deck choices. Turdz's first turn again. If we look at Vid's directions first, 8 in every direction but to the right where there's a 7. So only potential safety off the bat is 8, 3, 6, 7, and 9, but that is very much not safety. 8, 6, 7, 2 and 8, 7, 6, 4 strike me as quite clunky here. But I think 8, 6, 7, 2 in 7 could potentially be an appealing starter. Nah, 8, 7, 1, 7, and 8 is just a pain. That's just a rude card to deal with. 8, 7, 1, 7, and 8 is going to be real clunky whatever happens. But if you can get your 8, 7, 6, 4 to the left of that, so maybe you want the game to be on the right. You definitely have more power facing right. So let's say you did what I wanted last time and you, chuck your dumbest card in 9. 5, 5, 8, 9, and 5, and 9. Anything that can go in 8, you can either combo or capture with safety. Which doesn't mean, the opponent was going to play an 8 immediately, but it means maybe in the near future you think about going in 6. You probably don't have a card for it because you have too many 8s up. Maybe you need to remove up-facing stuff, because anytime Turdz plays in that middle row, 6, 6, 8, 5 is going to punish those 8s up. So maybe you play in 3. Maybe you play something like 5, 5, 8, 5, and 3. That still gets the dumbest card out of your hand. 8, 6, 7, 2 is kind of your recapturer, and you probably feel pretty good about that. It creates a difficulty for the opponent. You have some threat to go in 2. Probably, there's not really a great card, but you can figure that out later. Maybe 8, 3, 6, 7. It is a place where Vid's cards are happy to face the action too, but Vid does not have a move in 6, and it's kind of hard to set up a move in 6 for Vid. Something like 8, 7, 1, 7, 5 sets up, or 8, 7, 7, 1, 5 sets up 8, 7, 1, 7 for 6. But anything with such a low number out is just such a clunky thing to land there, and it's not like the combo potential's high. So I think I'd go, yeah, and in fact, we already see it. And we've seen the response. So Turdz, Vid, Vid goes 5, 5, 8, 5, 3, and Turdz immediately, Vid immediately replies 8, 7, 7, 1, 7, which is a curious move because it walks into a whole bunch of stuff. Specifically, 8, 7, 6, 4, 4 presumably is met by 36688, can be met by 83679, comboing 8, can be met by 66856, comboing 9, comboing 8, comboing 7, comboing 4. And is there something at the end that hits hard? What's the numbers? There's a 7 facing right towards 5, a 3 facing up, and a 5 facing left. And maybe you don't have it. 4, 8, 7, 6, and 5 flip some things, but the combo doesn't actually chain anything extra. But the fact that Turdz has 4 and has comfort in 4 means the thing to worry about is 8. But it's hard to set up comfort in 8. Not obvious at all. So I guess the natural thing to do is maybe go 2. And a nice point of 2. What card to put in 2? Not an easy answer there. 8, 3, 6, 7 is the obvious. Then 3, 6, 6, 8, and 1 might be annoying. Because you want to play 8, 7, 6, 4, and 4 there and be like, haha, sucker, now you don't have 7. But you give up big setup in 5 there. Quickly played by Vid there is quite interesting. Obviously, this must be the move he was looking at. Or we just spent a while without reloading. But I think it auto-reloads every 30, 60 seconds. So Vid can't have taken much time here. It is clunky for Turdz to go in 2. I think it doesn't quite work for Turdz to go in 4. Though it's so tempting because it draws 3, 6, 6, 8 out of the hand. Actually, here's an idea. It's a dumb idea. Nah, it doesn't work. I was thinking 8, 7, 6, 4, and 4, 3, 6, 6, 8, and 8, and then you go 4, 8, 7, 6, and 6, and 8, 3, 6, 7 is both 5 and 9. But the problem is Vid plays in 9, forcing you to go in 5, and when you go in 5, 6, 6, 8, 5, and 2 kills you. Yeah. It's going to be a complex game, I think. Once again, not going to be an easy path. The cards aren't quite coming together cleanly. Because you'd love to block 2, but I'm not sure there is a pleasant way to do so. You do something like 8, 6, 7, 2 there, and you give up safety in 1, while capturing 2, which is a pain. So 8, 3, 6, 7, 2, 3, 6, 6, 8, 3. Could you go 8, 6, 7, 2, 5? With the idea they go 4, you go 6. No, 8, 7, 6, 4 is garbage in that endgame. Yeah, I don't know here. It's clunky. Real clunky. You just never have threats in 8. It's trying to make 6 work for a little in my head, but there's just infinite ways to capture that, so it's hard to be well prepared for all of them. My point was you have 3, 6, 6, 8, and 2 covered with 4, 8, 7, 6. You have 8, 7, 1, 7 covered, and so you can draw 6, 6, 8, 5 out of their hand, which is really useful. So maybe we should be thinking more about that. Maybe, they want to block 4, not 8, and 4 is worse to block against 6 than against 2. Maybe 8, 6, 7, 2, 6 makes some sense. All right, he does go 6. Okay. I think Turdz and I are thinking pretty similarly these days. Maybe this was a better card to get out of his hand because maybe he correctly sees the game's going to be kind of right-facing. So Vid's natural move is probably 8, 7, 1, 7, 9. You can block 4, but 4, 8, 7, 6 is going to be pretty powerful there. But you don't really have a card to put in 5, so you're not going to get because you give up a same in 2, that's, I think, a big problem. Maybe not, but I think so. And you probably don't want a Z because your left power is so weak if you're Turdz. So Vid could go 4. Not entirely sure which card. Could go 9, either with like 3668 or with 8717. If 8717 9, I mean, again, that's just going to be an annoying spot for. Okay, it is playing very fast here. Sorry if that made a loud noise. Bump myself. Very fast. He has a lot of combo potential, though, right? Like, I was trying to use a card twice in Turdz' hand. Yeah, this is tough for Turdz again. Yeah, I think this was not the way. And again, Turdz has to try to find something creative to hold this. Vid has no up. So what if you go 8764 in 2? Anything Vid puts in 1, you can play 867, 2, and 5, and Vid is no captures, so you hold. That's the easy line. If Vid goes in 5, well, Vid's only capture in 5 is like 5585. But that's enough. That's enough. If you've played 8764 and 2 and Vid goes 5585 and 5, you have nothing on the bottom. And you know, if you play a 4876 and 1, they go 3668 68 and 9, and you have nothing in 8 with 867 2. Okay, so 8764 and 2 is not the answer, but I feel like we might be close. But anything else gives up 5. Okay, so what about you start in 1? Is there anything you can do starting in 1? A problem is Vid has 8 with 6685, but I still think maybe there's something in 1. So you go 48761. If Vid goes in 2 with 3668, you can go in 9. And 6685 you combo easily. You should hold there. 48761. So where else could Vid go? Because Vid doesn't have many capture threats. If Vid goes 8, you can go 9 with 876 with what's the card left? Either one, actually. I think anything works there. Maybe 1 holds? 48761? Eight seven six four is a really good sweeper. Maybe Vid can go 9 with 3668, because if you go 867 to 2, you don't get, it doesn't work. But can you go 867 to 8? I think you can. So my current belief is 48761 holds, and once again, as we have often been this game, we're not doing very well, but Turdz and I appear to be on the same page quite a bit. Interesting games. Obviously, these have been very tough spots for Turdz, I think. Which, like, you might take it to mean, like, Vid's not converting. But, like, if Turdz defends well, you don't convert, right? That's how Triple Triad goes. I think Vid is playing very nicely here, including playing very quickly this game, which I'm not used to seeing Vid play quite this fast. Obviously, playing big safe-ish corners can be somewhat easy, but realizing that 7 was strong even though it fully concedes 4, that the 8 isn't what matters, it's the 7, that's a nice read. I think Turdz is held. My argument is, if Vid goes in 2, with 6685, we combo it. If he goes in 2 with 3668, we can't combo because we get comboed back, but we can go in 9, and 8764 is gonna... No, we can't go in 9. If 3668, because 5585 is landing. Okay, so what's the move against 3668? Did I blow this? I might have blown this. 3668 and 2. I just miscalculated this earlier. I thought 8672 and 9 tied, but just 5585 and 5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Nothing in 8. Can't switch up which card to put in 9. Yeah, totally missed this. Yeah, and Vid finds it. Nicely played by Vid. I'm now quite curious. So we're gonna pop the solver here. Was there a way to hold? And where, if so, were the holds? Yeah, very nicely played by Vid. And as is clear, given that I was on the same page so often, I don't mind how Turdz played this. 5585, 8367, 4876, 8672, 8764. It's Turdz's hand. Vid's hand is 8771, 8717, 3668, 5585, and 6685. And pop open the solver. Will be really funny if Vid is tying here and I'm just oblivious, but I think. Sorry if Turdz is tying here. I keep just saying names wrong. It's one of those days. Alright, so 55853. I think this move is non-losing. I think this is a reasonable move. 8771 and 7. It's going to take forever to check stuff. Forgot about that. 8367 in 6 was the losing mistake. And 8717 and 4 was a winning reply. I was thinking maybe 8672 and 6 instead. That also loses. The same idea. So 6 was just a bad idea. No, it doesn't lose to the same idea. It loses to different ideas. Very important. Gotta lose different ways. I didn't think 8764 and 4 worked. But that does work. That does hold. I also thought about 8367 and 2, which also holds. So there were definitely holds, but I wasn't evaluating them as any better than what Turdz played. So I can't claim any moments of inspiration here. But the losing move was 6. And yeah, after 6 and 4, there are no ties. Turdz played the move I thought was best. There's only one win. It's 3668 and 2. Very nicely played by Vid. And yeah, we didn't get the last few moves. Sorry I wasn't reloading faster. But pretty clearly, 8672 was played in 9, 5585 was played in 5, and 8764 was played in 8, with 6685 remaining. And Vid wins 6-4. Nicely won by Vid. I'll see you next time.